Well, good morning and welcome to Buddha's in Your Landfill or Your Moment of Zen. I just learned this morning today's the first day of spring and it's also the Persian New Year. And the cat threw up on the floor and I didn't step in it. So it's going to be a good year. So we've been talking about Avatar, and we've been talking about Joseph Campbell's blueprint of the hero's journey, or the call to adventure, that he wrote about in The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And so we're going to pick up that thread today, that Ariadne's thread, to lead us out of this labyrinth. And we'll start with yesterday's poster, and then we'll bring this into, specifically into Avatar, as a movie myth about the hero's journey, and then we'll bring that into the our own psychology and everyday mind. Because if you can't make these abstract, these theories and philosophies and abstractions and patterns and formulas apply to your everyday mind, they have no real use. They're just information, entertainment, accumulated knowledge, so you can feel like you know something, but there's no application. It's the application that is transformative and makes you a more complete and happy person, that solves the riddles of your life. So we're interested in solving the riddle of life, solving the question, who am I? What am I here for? What's it all about? You see. So that it's the application that makes truth truth. If you can't apply truth usefully, like a recipe on how to, or like a manual on how to fix your computer or something's broken, if you can't apply the manual to the actual fixing of something in your life, it's no use. So that's what our my primary interest in is all of this intellectual stuff, is finding the use in it, which means the actual application of it in my life. And that application has to happen spontaneously. You can't take a screwdriver and fix your mind, but you can fix it spontaneously when the time is right, when you've accumulated enough dots to make a shift. So we're looking at a sudden, spontaneous shift in perspective that changes everything. A sudden shift in perspective that in Zen is called satori. Aha, I see. Whereas before I couldn't see, now I see. This is also, a lot of the, in religious doctrine and teachings, it's called grace. So yesterday we were looking at the map that Joseph Campbell made of the call to adventure and the journey of the hero. And you notice it was a circle with a line drawn through it and called the threshold of adventure. So that this area up here is our everyday world, and this area down here is the mythic world, or the unconscious world, where we encounter dragons and the whale and abduction and dismemberment, and we find healing, sacred marriage, father atonement, apotheosis, and elixir, and then the return, which is symbolized with resurrection, rescue, threshold struggle, and so forth. So we're going to, that was the basic outline, and so we want to move from that now into Avatar, and then into our own everyday life in the labyrinth. So we'll take that same circle and turn it into the Ouroboros of the snake eating itself. So let's go to Avatar, because I hope everybody here remembers seeing it. Probably that's the most watched movie I know of. And you remember that our hero, Jake Sully, was living in two worlds. He was a sky person, he had an ego. He lived in the world, which was a metaphor for our world, because we came from Earth and all that. And then there was the world of the Navi and Pandora. And they really represented the world of the conscious world that we live in, and the Garden of Eden body world that the Navi lived in. They trusted their body. They could leap from trees. They were bonded with their horses and dragons. They were intuitive. They had body wisdom. The sky people had no body wisdom. They had technology and machine wisdom. So all of their energy was into the technology that created the machines, particularly symbolized by the Colonel and his Hulk. Remember the machine Hulk, the giant robot he rode, you see? His body, the sky people's body was was powerful because of their machines. All of their energy was invested in that. The Navi had no machines because all of their energy was intuitive, and in the intuitive unity with nature. So there's two different worldviews here, and Jake Sully, you see, because he had the Navi body, but yet the mind of the sky people, he had the mind of the ego of the sky person, but the body of the Navi, and he was caught in a double bind. And you remember that moment where, and I think I wrote it down here, where he said, let me see. He was confused. He couldn't tell which was which. I know it's here. I can't see it. Anyway, he was in that moment where he didn't know what was real. Was the world idea of the sky people, or the world idea of the Navi real? And he was in each one rejected him, and he was in a no man's land. So this no man's land is what we experience every day in our everyday life when we encounter a situation where we are not certain, where there is a confusion. What should I choose? That's the labyrinth. If you notice, a labyrinth is a maze, and every choice of which way to go has equally valid choices, so that you don't know which way to go. So you kind of like oscillate between, should I go there? I don't know. Should I go there? I don't know. So you oscillate between the two. You see. You can't choose. Just to connect, let's jump backwards to the Oscars when Warren Beatty was caught in a double bind. That was such a perfect example. Was this, he could not act? Was this the real Oscar nominee of Best Picture, or was it fake news? And the authority, the conditioning was, well, the Oscars never make a mistake. This is the true announcement. But yet something was not right. So we wow. And so we had to give it to Faye Dunaway to say, you choose. And she announced it, you see. But that was a perfect example of the wow, caught between a double bind, which I laugh at and experience all the time when I go take my wife's shopping list to Walmart, and it's not clear, so should I choose this cereal or that cereal? So I'm constantly caught on this no man's land World War One, no man's land between two trenches, between two sides, between two world ideas, between two realities. You see? Wow, wow, wow. We're caught in that today. Is it real news or fake news? Wow, wow, wow. I don't know. You see? I can't choose. Both of them are coming from authorities that I'm supposed to believe. I'm supposed to believe journalism. I'm supposed to believe the president, which is true. Wow, 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 wow. You see what I mean? So that was the vortex that Jake Sully was caught in. But in this particular story, he was caught between his own mind and body. The mind, conscious mind, was sky people, our mind. Body was Navi, Pandora, but it was unconscious to the sky people. So my body wisdom, the wisdom of my body, my intuition, is basically unconscious to my intellect, my conscious mind. And we call it the unconscious, but I would rather call it the transcendent. So that Pandora and the wisdom of the body is transcendent to the intellect of the consciousness. You see, so it's probably confusing. So anyway, we're looking at this, instead of the hero's journey now, we're looking at the snake that eats its own tail. So which is the head and which is the tail? See, so this is a classic mythic symbol of the Ouroboros, or the vortex, which is experienced as vertigo. I've been talking about vertigo, the Hitchcock movie, and Martini Time. And vertigo is the experience of the vortex. And the vortex is this inability to choose, so that Jimmy Stewart was falling into this vortex of not being able to choose what's real, so you have nothing to hold on to. Which is the same vortex of Mad Men, when in the logo, when Don Draper, as an image, falls off the tower. You see, that whole idea of falling into a vortex or an oscillation of the mind where you don't know what's real and what isn't. And this is a terrifying place to be. And it's either going to go two ways. It's going to go into violence or creativity, because you have to get out of that. You can't stay in a split reality. That's schizophrenia. That's psychosis. You can't live in psychosis where you have nothing. This is why earthquakes terrify us, because everything is moving. You see, so there's all the stabilities are gone. You see, so that is this terrifying thing of consciousness itself. So it's kind of like we're always walking on this thin ice of at any moment we can fall into this vortex where we don't know what's real or not. So we're constantly clinging to stability and to idols and to certainties and opinions and judgments that anchor us, you see, in who I am and my ego and my opinionated world and all of this. We constantly reinforce that because it keeps us from falling into the vortex. So so we're looking at the vortex then as being a double bind, and a double bind is where no matter what you choose, you lose. We all experience that times in our life where there's no good answer. Everything is a bad choice. You know, there's no right or wrong. Everything is wrong. There's lose-lose. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. So this is a double bind, and what the vortex forces us into is, like I said, either a violent answer, which would be, and we see that all the time in the news, where there is a vortex in a marriage or a relationship, and it ends up with one of them shooting the other. So you get out of this vortex by getting rid of the other choice. You get rid of the competing worldview. When two worlds compete in a relationship, there can only be one reality. So if you have two realities competing to be one, either you have a creative result, which is a larger reality, or you have a violent result, which is to get rid of the competing reality. You see, this is what wars are all about. You have two worldviews competing for one, and the only way to get one is to eliminate the other. So we're looking at moving then from a lose-lose to a win-win. So the blueprint in Avatar that Jake Sully did, what did he do to get out of the double bind of being in no man's land between the two realities of his own mind and body? This is a terrible split, to be split from the mind split from the body. And quite frankly, Western culture has created that split since the Enlightenment, when we have become taken refuge or taken our seat in the mind, in the intellect, in science, in the objective reality, in logic, and we have repressed the body wisdom, which is the feminine, which is the intuitive, which is the dream content, which is the mystery, which is the wonder, which is Pandora. Remember, Pandora was this was the mother was the primary force, whereas the sky people, the father, was the primary force. So you have the father and the patriarch or the matriarch, these two, mind and body competing. You see, so how do you become one? You can't be split from your body. That's insanity. But maybe we all are insane in our culture. So the blueprint in Avatar, you see, was how do you transcend this split between mind and body? Well, what did Jake Sully do? But he leaped on the last shadow. And he said it was a mad act, an insane act. Shoot, I keep looking at this and I can't read the quotes. I'm wasting my time looking at that. So he actually said this was an insane act. Zorba the Greek, one of my favorite quotes from Zorba the Greek, is that a man needs a little madness or else he will never cut the rope and be free. So what is this mad act? This madness, because the double bind is madness. So how do you leap out of madness? The double bind, where you can't choose, you're caught between two realities, two choices, both of which seem good or bad, and you can't choose. There's no clear good or bad. It gets wah, 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 you see. How do you get out of that madness? You see, that is madness. That is insanity. How do you get out? Well, he leaped on the last shadow. So what is the last shadow? Well, in the movie, it was called, this big dragon was called the last shadow because it's the last thing you see. If you see the shadow coming, it's going to eat you. So it's the last shadow you see. Isn't that clever? However, the last shadow is also our fear of death. So in order to get out of this insanity of the vortex, you see, we have to, which is a fear of death, the vortex is created by a fear of death, you see. So we have to let go of our need to be certain. You see, the vortex is created because we need to be certain, and certainty makes us feel like we're sane. Sanity means certain. I'm certain this is real. So that's sanity. What is insane, if you say this is real and everybody else in the world says it's not, then you get to be judged insane by the world because you don't agree with the reality of the world, However, you still may say, no, you're insane, I'm real. You see. Which is, you're either crazy or you're a saint. You don't know anyway, or enlightened, you see. So, but the point is here that Jake Sully leaps onto the mad act is to go into the very thing you're afraid of. You see, that's, if the fear of death is creating the lack of certainty and the inability to choose, you have to be okay with not being able to choose. So you accept the death you fear. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with not knowing what's real. I'm okay with not knowing what to do. I accept that. That's the portal. So, I mean, this is really a blueprint, for me, it's always a blueprint for when I run into this oscillation, double bind, I notice, I say, oh, there it is again. And so I begin to be curious about it. Instead of hitting myself or blaming somebody else for it, blaming myself or someone else, I accept it. I look at it with curiosity and humor. Curiosity is also humor, so it's humorous that I'm caught in this again. And that immediately shifts everything, because now I'm not caught in the double bind. Now I'm interested, now I'm outside of the double bind, looking at me caught in the double bind, and that shifts takes the fear out. If you can look at it, you're not afraid of it. If you're not afraid of it, there's no double bind. And what happens is that the body wisdom then kicks in, and you know what to do. So Jake Sully jumps on the last shadow, and the next thing you know, he knows what to do. He's the avatar. He's running around bringing all the tribes together. And then the movie ends with his final resolution of the split between the Sky People and the Navi, mind and body. He lets go of his ego altogether, which is Jake Sully. So he steps on the last shadow again and gives up Jake Sully. And remember, he was giving a little video. This is my last report. Goodbye. It's my birthday. I'm going to be born again. And so the movie ends when the body and mind are merged and become one, and he wakes up. So you don't know who he is when he wakes up. It's like he's a Buddha. It's like he has gone through the transformative process of healing the split between mind, thinking, and now, you see. So body wisdom, I use this a lot because it's a positive understanding rather than saying the unconscious, which is kind of like a negative. Body wisdom is now wisdom, but it is not thinking wisdom. So this really is primary wisdom, and thinking wisdom is secondary. But our culture has made thinking, thought, and time, and intellect primary, and body wisdom has become secondary and discounted and put off and buried. So we can't get in touch with it, you see. Women are more in touch with body wisdom than men are. This is go to a wedding reception. I used to do weddings. And there's music, and the women jump in and start dancing, which is body wisdom, dancing. And the men are kind of like, I need more liquor. Wait till the booze takes effect, you know, before they can surrender. So there is a surrender to body wisdom involved here. There's a letting go of time. There's a letting go of my opinions. There's a letting go of my judgments. There's a letting go of everything I'm holding on to, and a surrender into the wisdom of now and the wisdom of my own body, you see, which is not confused. The body is never confused because the body is totally now, like an animal. Animals don't get into these vortexes. This is the Nike commercial. You just do it. There is no, oh, should I choose this or that? Oh, I don't know what to do. Wow, 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 wow. It was kind of like going back. We'll end up with the Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, because that too was just, I don't know, I just keep finding more and more wisdom in that little, regardless of the fact it was the wrong announcement. The fact that Beatty was like Jake Sully, he was like here in the no man's land between the two cards, he couldn't choose. And so he gives the card to the woman and she just says it, you know, it's La La Land. You know, oh Warren, you can't choose. You know, give me that. It's La La Land. So for the male mind, this is the patriarchal mind, the male mind has to surrender to the body mind in order to get out of the double bind of thought. This is primarily the world of thought and thinking. By thinking without wisdom is going to go in a tape loop. We all witness this in our minds when we see a monologue, when we have something that we have not settled, something that we have not resolved. I didn't say something happened where we got burnt or we hurt somebody else or something was unfinished. And so that creates a monologue. And we're constantly talking to an imaginary person in our mind, trying to get out of the past pain, trying to get out of this unfinished business through thinking. And we can't do it. So it just keeps tape looping, and it's called a monologue. This is a very common thing. I've spent most of my life in a monologue. I don't anymore. But a monologue is trying to get out of a double bind by thinking. But the thinking has separated itself from the body, which is never caught in a double bind because the body doesn't think. You see, the body is just action. So I'll close with I've probably said this before, but people come and go, is my best example of the body-mind acting and the surrender of the thinking mind was when my mother she was 100 years old, and she was still driving, and she lost her car keys. And for days, she was going in a tape loop, looking under everything 5 or 6 times and looking for the car keys, couldn't find them. And she said, I'm going to drive a stroke if I don't find them because they're in the house. And so she, next time I saw her, she was smiling. She said, well, guess what? I found the keys. And what happened was I just gave it up to God. So she jumped on the last shadow. She didn't give it up to say, you find it. She just let go of it and surrendered it. But in her case, there was somebody to surrender it to, so she gave it to God. But the surrender doesn't need a God. There's just the surrender. And immediately she walked into her body, walked into the bedroom, and she put the body put its hand in a sleeve, in a pocket of a sweater. There were the keys. But her conscious mind did not know why she was going to the bedroom. There was no premonition. There was no thought about, oh, go look in the bedroom. Her body just went there. Her body knew where it was all the time. But the mind could not talk to the body because the body has no language. The body's like your dog. You can't talk to the dog like you talk to a human being because the dog has no language. So where the mind gets believing in thought, that thought is real, is always getting into a tape loop, and the body just sits back there, well, when you get tired, I'll tell you what to do. So we'll leave it with that, and I'll see you at Martini time tonight. And who knows what we'll talk about.